Would you do our roll call for us, please?
Be happy to, Mayor. Thank you. Councilmember Neblett?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Present.
Councilmember Juniman?
Here.
Councilmember Knutson?
Here.
And Mayor Abrams?
Here. Thank you very much. Tonight we have two different items on our new business section. Do I have a motion to approve our agenda? Moved by Smith, seconded by Juniman to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, tonight we have no unfinished business. We do have new business. As I said, we have two items. We are going to hear about the Maplewood Nature Center Master Plan, and that should take about a half an hour. And then we have commission and board interviews next. So with that, City Manager Coleman, do you want to introduce this?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight, we are looking at the Nature Center and a long-range plan for the Nature Center and all of the assets there. We decided to do this study, I think it was last summer, I believe so, at March 11th. Tonight, we're going to have the consultants, and I think Ann Hutchison will introduce our consultant on this, to review the master plan project and review what we've done so far on stakeholder and community feedback. So with that, Mayor, Ann can introduce the consultant and talk a little bit more about what the master plan aims to do.
Good evening, Ann.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and be able to share with you information on our Nature Center master plan. A master plan for the Nature Center was a recommendation of the Maplewood Parks and Recreation System Master Plan, as well as the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. And then in July 2018, the City Council approved the preparation of the master plan, and we subsequently hired Hoisington Kegler to prepare the plan. Before I introduce KGI, I would like to take a quick moment to just acknowledge some Nature Center staff and introduce Karen Wackel, Office Specialist, stand up, Karen, and Carol Gurnis, part-time naturalist at the Nature Center, and we have another naturalist, Oakley Besance, who is not able to be here. And then I'd like to acknowledge Jim Beardsley, you guys sit down, from our 501c3 nonprofit group, the Friends of Maplewood Nature, which fundraises and helps support programs and special events and speakers at the Nature Center. So having said that, I would like to introduce Brian Hargis, who is Vice President and professional landscape architect from Hoisington Kegler. We've been working with him last fall and this spring, and it's been wonderful to have him, and he's going to do our presentation on the master plan. So I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Ann. Madam Mayor, members of the council, thanks for having us here tonight. I have a brief presentation. It was provided in your packet. Nothing's changed from that tonight, but wanted to walk through basically three parts of this, sort of an overview of what the Nature Center is and provides, a little bit about our process and what we've heard to date, as well as kind of encapsulate a closing discussion session with you all about goals and objectives for what we'd like to see at the end of the planning process. As Ann had mentioned in her introduction, this plan was called out in the Parks and Rec System Plan as well as the Comprehensive Plan, and it fulfills 5 of the 6 City Council strategic objectives looking forward, including community inclusiveness, financial sustainability, infrastructure, asset management, integrated communication, and operational effectiveness. And I think as we begin to look forward at some of the findings we've had for the first part of this, we think it's important to consider the Maplewood Nature Center's mission. That is to enhance the awareness of land, water, and wildlife resources, and to empower the community to become stewards of the environment. And I think you'll see that in a lot of the activities that the Nature Center is doing today. A little bit of by the numbers. Over the last 5 years, almost 45,000 visitors, and this specifically is to the facility itself. Doesn't include the broad amount of trail users that come to the site as well. Nearly 1,150 peer group presentations since 2014, 2,100 hours of volunteer time, as well as a variety of activities that have assisted the city in achieving 5-step recognition as a green city, which is an important acknowledgement for the Nature Center. Generally, as we look at attendance, I think this sort of breaks down 2018 in sort of a summary. Building visitors, it does serve as a visitor center, as a trailhead to the Nature Center, but public programs, outreach and special events, as well as school activities and even preschool are big components of attendance at the Nature Center in 2018. The next few slides talk a little bit about what the Nature Center provides. And this, we just wanted to give an overview to council members about the variety of aspects that occur at the Nature Center today. It is a visitor center. It's staffed Tuesday through Saturday, 8:30 to 4:30 year-round. Provides room rental, snowshoe rentals, and staff are available during that time to answer questions. There's educational material and in-person resources available to the public to drop in and utilize, find out information about additional exhibits, self-guided tours, and additional exploration throughout the Nature Center. And there's a variety of habitats to explore, including the naturalized areas along the pond and the boardwalk, the woodland savanna habitats, as well as immediately around the facility, the nature yard, nature play yard, and demonstration gardens. Additionally, there's a variety of programming that occurs there as well, everything from public school groups, public groups, adults, families, ECFE programs, school groups, as well as scouts and homeschools. A lot of special events take place there as well, citywide, including Waterfest and others. Birthday parties and preschool programs are also a big component of the programming. It also provides service learning. They help coordinate aspects at this location as well as the neighborhood preserves throughout the city, of which there are 15, City Hall as well, and it includes individual schools. Century College is a big component to this, and community groups including 3M, Rotary, and others. The Nature Center volunteer program consists of about 80 individuals throughout that assist with Nature Center operations and is a huge asset to the Nature Center. Broader outreach throughout the community is a big aspect of what the Nature Center does. It's ingrained sort of in some of the city systems across all platforms, really, looking at environmental newsletter, the city's green team, stormwater education, a variety of aspects of this, including that Minnesota Green Step Cities piece that we had mentioned before. Educational support for city environmental initiatives such as trash and recycling and organics, as well as energy and sustainable landscaping components are key to this as well, in addition to the community garden coordination and noxious weed detection and monitoring. Just an overview of the site itself. It's roughly 40 acres. It's sort of north central in the leg, if you will, of the boundary of Maplewood. And it's a mix of upland area and wetland. Two components to this really are the Nature Center itself on the far east end of the site where most of the facility sits. You can see the network of trails that work around the wetland and around the neighborhood with its varied access points. The Nature Center itself here, this is a map just showing the existing sort of core facilities of the Nature Center, the parking lot area. You can see the school bus there with its sort of drop-off arc all the way around the parking lot. The existing building, a side maintenance shed that exists there today, and a small maintenance yard, as well as the small amphitheater and nature play yard that are a part of this piece. The red on that map denotes an area that is essentially buildable or upland outside of what would be a wetland setback. So we're thinking about that in terms of what improvements could be made to the immediate site and core facilities. Globally, looking at some of the goals and objectives of the master planning process, ensure that in future investments are grounded in a strategic vision for the Nature Center, suggest updates or additions to programming and interpretation, expanding partnerships, ensuring that the building and maintenance facilities are adequate but positioned to meet the demands of the future over the next 20 years, provide additional concepts for potential future site amenities or facility needs, thinking about what that means in the context of the site's natural state, a phasing and implementation plan, and ultimately really building relationships and cultivating buy-in for the community. Overall, our process, we're probably about a third of the way through, just beginning the portion of the vision, goals, and strategies piece. We've conducted a number of upfront components with online questionnaires, additional stakeholder meetings and feedback, and we'll provide some of the feedback on that in the Nature Center assessment here as well, but looking to conclude around May of this year. A summary of the engagement to date. we've had a kickoff and architectural site assessment meeting as a part of that. I should note that Ortel Architects is a part of our team to help understand the immediate building or the potential for additional smaller structures on site, for example, a shed, storage areas that were of great need for the Nature Center. They're a team member with this as well, and we're a part of the site assessment. Stakeholder group meetings, of which we've included volunteers, friends groups, park commission members, and additional visitors. Ann and Ginny provided an update to the Parks Commission, as well as an Association of Nature Center Administrators peer group meeting, which was a collection of Nature Center administrators from around the Twin Cities metros to gain a better understanding of operations, needs and desires that they face in their world and how that could be applicable to the Maplewood Nature Center. And then the general use questionnaire, which is open right now and will continue to be open until March 15th. And we have, as of today, 210 respondents to that survey. So a quick summary of what we heard from the stakeholder meetings. It's more than just a nature center, Maplewood Nature Center, that is influences policy and practices in other city departments and local organizations, as well as educating visitors throughout the community. A lot of that is the sustainability edge that they provide and integrate throughout the entire community. It's increased awareness of the Nature Center. Its broad community impact is needed. They feel that it's a very important component to the identity and brand of this community. It serves a broad range of ages, and it's an asset to continue to build on. And then staff also is integral in programming at some of the satellite sites, those preserves, but it's challenging with the functionality of having to haul supplies to various sites. And there may be some new sites, opportunities arising at new sites like Wakefield or potentially this campus or Fish Creek. There are space limitations affecting school group visitation, experience for general visitors when they visit the site, the staff ability to efficiently and effectively work within those areas, parking, storage, office, public gathering spaces are all insufficiently sized. Staff workloads are at capacity as we think about what that means for the future. Volunteers and service learning opportunities are an important part of the Nature Center success, but it's important to recognize that staff is needed to educate, supervise, and manage those volunteers at the same time. It provides valuable habitat and open space, and those partnerships and outreach should continue to be explored as we look through the future. A couple of components on the peer group meeting. Visitors value the consistency in hours. That was a topic about weekend activity, thinking about Sunday hours for the Nature Center. They're very popular times for birthday parties and rentals, and they offer guaranteed attendance times for people to pop in along the weekend. There are conflicts today with the rental and public use rooms. As people wander into the exhibit room, sometimes they feel like they're imposing on some activities that are already there. So organization and justification for those spaces should be thought about and considered as we look through and go through the master planning. Most nature centers have at least one vehicle for grounds maintenance was a topic that they talked about. We can look at that here and what that means. And all agree that a dedicated maintenance person is valuable with intimate knowledge of the facility. In order to provide equitable access to information, having tablets available at the Nature Center provides support and visual hearing. This is some of the newer technology we're hearing from other nature centers around that provides that interaction across languages and provides equity to those. Having exhibits with interchangeable seasonal themes continues to bring people back for repeat visitation. Ongoing exhibits don't get stale and people continue to return. Drop-in or open house style flexible STAR programs are becoming more popular, but do require staff on call and available for those. Memberships are one funding option that has worked locally, $50 for a family or $30 for an individual, but they provide easy program access and benefits. So there's some additional things that we will consider as we move forward in the master planning process in terms of revenue generation. The general use questionnaire, some of the feedback from the broader community, some interesting stats here about even number of people visit alone or with another person or small group, but not typically in large groups. Nearly half bring children. 60% come from within 5 miles. 25% travel 6 to 10 miles. Over half are Maplewood residents, half are not. That may be due to the shape of the community in that location, but it's an anchor for a variety of folks in and around that zone. Most use the main entrance, although folks do use the neighborhood entrance and obviously utilize the trail network. There is some trouble finding it for a few respondents this side of the century, and understanding how to get to the Nature Center was a consideration. But 9 out of 10 respondents would be interested in attending programs or events at other neighborhood preserves if offered. So I think that's a key consideration as we think about some of the potential steps in the future and what that means. People who haven't visited the Nature Center recently, mainly because their kids are grown or don't perceive there to be enough for older kids or adults to do, so it seems leaning younger kids or seniors. Of the people who visit with children, all spend time at the Nature Play Yard. It's very popular, and also use that picnic area as well. Everyone, well, 84% generally use the exhibit room as well, so that's a main attraction inside of the building. And people, most respondents really spend most of their time on the trail and the boardwalk. That loop that's provided as a part of that Nature Center is a great feature to get out and be on the water. Visitors mainly use the trails, participate in unstructured exploration and learning of the visitor center, watch wildlife, take self-guided tours, or attend programs for adults. A few more here. Respondents are least satisfied with the benches, parking, and nature play. I think the parking lot could be expanded, was a conversation. Nature play area could be expanded and upgraded, potentially additional benches along the trail network throughout. Many wish that the visitor center were open on Sundays, or at least like a remote restroom as associated with that because of the amount of trail use that occurs on Sunday. One of the interesting questions about the favorite exhibit, almost no one listed that as an exhibit, a favorite. They couldn't really identify what that would be. So it speaks to what should we be thinking about in terms of exhibits at the Nature Center, but primarily people really enjoy the trails, the boardwalk, and the live animal components inside of the exhibit area. More seating, trail improvements, visitor center hours on Sundays, outdoor shelter, and more interpretive exhibits and other nature play. And general nature study, environmental practices for their home yard environmental issues, organized, especially luminary hikes were talked about, potentially even music center events were ideas to think about for future programming as well. So, to sum up some of that early outreach we've done with stakeholders, with the staff and the community as well as the ANCA group, some of the short-term needs that we see, and this first bullet may almost be more of an immediate need: additional shed for expanded storage space and adequate on-site storage with a more efficient system, just to gain some more square footage in programming space storage within the center. Potential reconfiguration of the office area of the building for more efficient use of space, and maybe that's combined with a potential volunteer workspace. Often they're kind of over the top of each other in that office area. The boardwalk upgrades or replacement are also identified. I think that's in the capital improvement budget for improvement here in the next year or two, as well as updating program and interpretation offerings and improvements to the trails and yards, which might be items like the play yard component, the nature play, or additional benches. Longer term, when we think about the Nature Center, some of the findings we're beginning to see out of the needs assessment talk about the notion for an additional gathering classroom space, and that could be potentially to the north side of the building. That would provide the separation from public space and an exhibit room and a classroom space that could be for school groups or for birthday parties. The ability to have larger groups at the site, that expansion could offer that to bring a third class to the site, and part of the conversation with school groups, teachers in particular, about how to functionally do that on the site as well. A unique thing to this planning effort, I think mostly because of the preserves, is the ability to offer more mobile programming and events at Maplewood's other neighborhood preserves. And what does that mean in terms of community outreach, storage components, programming, potentially a vehicle to be able to transport those and organize those. So some thought has gone into sort of a mobile component to what that means to be bringing more outreach of programming to people in the community at these neighborhood preserves. And then additionally, some exhibit renovation. So, today, that's where we're at with our process, just beginning to kick off some of the core visioning components with staff. We've discussed some of that again with stakeholders to date. We will be waiting until we get the feedback from the community on the March 15th deadline for the online questionnaire to gain some more insights. But from there, we hope to launch into some concept development and some scenarios for potential improvements that are in generally those categories of immediate, short-term, and long-term improvements. And to that end, we've outlined a few questions that we thought of that may guide a conversation with you all tonight, but we mostly want to hear your thoughts and reactions to the information that's been provided to date. If there's other components that we should be considering, other outreach methods, we're open to ideas. So with that, I'll end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartjes. A couple of points for our newest council members. You may not be aware of this, but last year we completed $300,000 worth of repairs, upgrades. We replaced carpeting. We did a number of things at the community center. And I think it was about at $300,000, was it not, Ms. Coleman? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. You know, it's always good to do planning. I have a couple of suggestions, and I see that we've got some council members who want to talk as well. I would like to see some additional engagement. There's some mixed messaging when it comes to groups. I'd like to see some engagement with our schools. How do they envision using the nature center? Perhaps senior centers. Question about the 185 that have responded. Are those 185 people that have responded online? Is that, okay. All right. I'd like to see some additional input. If we could, maybe staff could work with Joe so that we can seek some additional input from the community. 185 is kind of a small number, and I think that the more information we can get, the better we can then kind of guide this. And I had one other suggestion. Thank you for passing this out to us, the adult and family nature programs between February and April. Another form of engagement, I think, would be a good idea to look at the programs that we are offering and perhaps ask people who are attending our programs. I see we've got 9 programs in March, 6 in April. Maybe a small survey, couple of questions. How are we doing? What do you want to see? Did this meet your needs? What are some other ideas for programming that we're not providing? Because you've got a captive audience. They've already come to the Nature Center, and we might as well be trying to reach out to them and get their opinions as well, because this is a community resource, and we want to make sure that we really get deep into an understanding of what we're doing and is it working, and what kinds of changes do we need to make? So far, what I'm hearing is all about the physical part of it in terms of, more work on the buildings and a maintenance person and a vehicle, and I want to see what do we need to do in terms of the programming that we're doing. Are we meeting the needs of people? I'd like maybe more focus on that as opposed to, and I guess I'm a council member, and so, we're always looking at resources and financial resources. I want to make sure that we are meeting needs of our residents. And I think if we can expand our engagement, I think that's going to give us better information. So those are my thoughts on that. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. You said some of the things I was sort of thinking as well. I think, even right at the top, when we look at 8,500 visitors, I don't know if that's good or not good. I know it's, it's a number, but is that something we should be really excited about, or is it behind where we want it to be? And regardless, what would be, if we did make additional investments, what do we think those investments would drive in additional traffic, and to really look at then being able to measure that and figure out if the money we spend is doing what we want it to do. I think those are the kinds of things I'm interested in to start to understand. I mean, there's a lot of investment that could take place here, and given unlimited resources, I'd be happy to do it, but that's not our reality. So I think starting to tie these investments, as the mayor said, to what some of those outcomes might be, whether it's, additional school programming, additional visitors, additional other kinds of programming, and then how many people do we expect to do those things, and all those sorts of things are kind of what I'm looking for. I guess, I see a lot of ways forward here. I don't necessarily know what the prize is that we're going after. And I think that's the part that's missing a little bit for me. As far as the outreach, I think what you've done here is a really good start. I think what I'm a little concerned about is it feels like, particularly in the stakeholders and peer group meetings, I mean, these are people who are already deeply excited about the Nature Center. So they're going to say great things. I'm also interested in the people who aren't going there today. Why aren't they? And what would make the difference for them? I think then really diving deep into the numbers too, I think will be helpful. So, I kind of talked about goal setting, but also like if we looked at attendance over the last year or two, of that 8,500, how many came on Saturday? A Saturday over the, and if we start looking at at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, do we find that only 3% of the people come on Tuesdays? And then does it make sense for us to be open that day? And could we use those resources to open up on Sunday potentially? Or just really trying to dive deeper into some of those numbers I think would be helpful. Numbers are just a way to tell a story. It's not the story in and of itself, but I think those are the kinds of things that would be helpful to give me the confidence to say, all right, we've measured where we're at today. We've set a goal for where we want to be that's also measurable, and this is what it's going to take for us to get there. It makes it easier for us to write a check, I think. But this is, I think, a very good base start. So thank you for your hard work.
Very good comments. Thank you, Councilmember Smith. One other point, I'm looking at the next steps that you indicate on here, at least in our PowerPoint. It talks about a visioning meeting, the second visioning meeting with staff. I kind of look at a visioning meeting as something certainly much bigger than staff. I think it has to do with more engagement. How does our community envision this use? I really appreciate what Councilmember Smith said about who's using it on Tuesday. I think that that's a really good metric that I would like to know about. Because maybe we need to make some adjustments with that so that we really are targeting our community and we're meeting their needs. So just some additional thoughts. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Well, lots of things come to my mind. The first thing, at the stakeholders meeting that I was at way last fall, this came up, that we have just so much staff, and they already need zippers. And so we have, as we vision what we're wanting them to do, we have to be very definite about on-site and other places. And to go way back in history, as I am often wanting to do, in 1993, 57% of the people in Maplewood said they wanted open space preserves. And those have become a very big draw for people. They're a focus for people. And people want something to be going on there too, on some of the sites at least. So if we're going to do that, we have to look at what we expect of the staff and what kind of things we might want to see happen at the preserves. And I think from that came the idea of the possibility of a vehicle and some storage space, because I have to say, having been a teacher for many moons and a teacher who taught an elective, I had to carry my whole life with me from room to room. Gosh, it was fun. And we are relying very heavily on the Nature Center staff people. They use their own vehicles. They pack them to the gills. They have to unpack them when they get to the site, blah, 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 set everything up, then pack them back up again. We have to look at the use of their time as what's valuable to us. Because I think the things they could offer occasionally, I'm not talking every month or anything, but possibly at I don't know, 4 or 5 of the preserve sites over the good part of the year, a program. Well, that's nice, but figure out what they're going to need. And of course, when you have one that is so far down at Fish Creek, that's someplace where you might want to think of what kind of a storage space could be accommodated that would be secure, not humongous, not extravagant, just a way to leave certain things there. And the whole idea of a vehicle is not even so much as transporting the naturalists as having things loaded on that vehicle all the time that don't take staff time every single time they do something. We're trying to give value to the staff's time. So we need to get a little bit more intricate about that type of thing if that's what we're expecting. I do agree that possibly on the times it's open, maybe it's been a while since we've assessed exactly who's showing up when. And I know it's hard to do half days, but what if you only needed a half day on a Tuesday or a half day on a Wednesday for people to drop in and ask questions?
Right.
You know, that's in order to free up, people want Sundays apparently. And so if we're going to appeal to people and get them there and get them enthused and say, yes, we support our nature center, then we have to have somebody around to respond to them.
Okay.
So, you know, that whole thing has to be worked out, I think. I think, though, that I'm not sure how much everybody realizes how much they fill in the gaps for things that we just assume are happening. For instance, our community garden program basically relies on them. It isn't a tooth fairy floating in to take care of that. And, you know, the one at Edgerton School has really expanded. That's now the handicap accessible one. It's wonderful. The community loves it. Okay, that's a huge service, but again, it demands time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the location over on Hazelwood and C, which is First Evangelical Free Church is kind of the sponsor, and they help, but, you know, it needs coordination. Doesn't happen by accident. The Rice Street Gardens, that was the church in Roseville, and they're very good about supplying people to help on site and stuff, but it's in our city, and the water source is our responsibility. Every time you talk about something like that, there's somebody that has to pick up the pieces. So I'm just saying we need to possibly have our consultant go through with our naturalists and monkey business as though it may seem, how many tasks in a day they have to do, no matter how minute. Because if they involve going here and there and everywhere, it takes away from the site itself. And they've been filling in the gaps a lot. I don't think everybody's aware of that, but they have. And so we need to look at, first of all, I presume at some point in your life, Anne will not want to work here. She might want to retire before she has to wheel herself in. You know, she has been here, what, 30? No, but, I mean, we have to look ahead, what we're going to offer, what kind of staffing we're going to need, who we'll be able to attract in the future to do the same things. And we have to know what it's about.
From my perspective, those might be the next steps in terms of staffing it. I think we need to really do this plan first to figure out what is it that we need to do with our community. And there will be some logical steps then that will really drive us, because we've got to know what days. I think council has brought a really good point forward. What days should we be open? Should we be open some half days? How does all of that work? But staffing follows that. But I think we need to collect all of that data first. I'm going to remind my council members that we are now 5 minutes past our time. We have a little leeway because we're going to be doing these interviews with commissioners, but let's just take 5 more minutes and wrap this up.
Madam Mayor, I just have one thing I would like to throw out there for location, just in case you're wondering why sometimes there aren't as many people.
Okay, what is it?
Put it in the GPS and see what you get.
Thank you.
People from out of town come and they tell them it's on 7th Street in St. Paul.
Thank you.
Well, that's all.
Councilmember Niblett.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to who is coming to the center, I want to know who's coming to the center, by race, by disability. When I think about our community, which is terribly diverse, I shouldn't say terribly, wonderfully diverse. When I think about the school, I mean, just North High, when I think about North High has 50-plus languages being spoken by their students. Those are people who live in our community. So I'm interested in that, in finding out exactly who is coming. The other thing is, do these come in different languages, your publications? Should they? I don't know. The other small thing that I want to say to bring your attention to, under community inclusiveness, under your strategies, it says access to the Nature Center's offerings, can't see, offers immense benefits that should be accessible. I just feel like it should say is accessible to all instead of should be. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one quick question. And I'm very new to this, so I really appreciate your program and your presentation. It's wonderful. But you say the attendance was 8,500 in 2018, and then later on, you talk about staff workloads at capacity. Do you have a sense of what your capacity is as far as visitors or whatever metrics you might use?
Mayor, council members, that's a good question. And in general, I've been doing this for 31 years, and our attendance has varied over the years. But, you know, if you were to pick an average, it would be around like a range between 8 to 12,000 a year, depending on projects and groups and things that we schedule. It also depends on staff availability. We've kind of lost some staff, so then time, you know, becomes of essence.
Do you have a targeted capacity? I mean,
I mean, I think that's a question we could address as part of the visioning process. What is a good target, and what capacity could we do? And we've been thinking about that as we do this. So, I mean, you know, you mentioned the school district, and that is a possibility. When originally, when the Nature Center started in '88, we had a partnership with Community Ed, and they paid for all the buses to come out to the Nature Center. But then the funding was lost for that, and so we've branched out with a variety of other programs. So, I mean, we could circle back and do that kind of thing as part of the visioning process, and we hope to.
Thank you. Appreciate
Sure.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Council, it's time for us to move on to our next agenda item. Thank you for a very good presentation. We really appreciate it. The next agenda item is filling a position in our Planning Commission. There were 3 applicants. At one time, there were 4, and then 1 withdrew, and so we're back to having 3 applicants. And council members, new council members who haven't done this yet, you have a list of questions in front of you. If you want to take a look at the questions, what we do is each council member picks a question that they get to ask. And then these are the questions so that it's uniform, and that way we have, you know, some measurable, we've got some metrics here. It's the same questions that we're going to ask each individual. So council members, pick your question, please. Councilmember Juniman.
Number 4, please.
Okay. Councilmember Niblett. Okay. Councilmember Knutson.
3.
Councilmember Smith, 2. And I'll start with number 1. Is our candidate here? Mr. Gould? Welcome to the Maplewood City Council. And thank you for your interest in our Planning Commission. I have the first question.
Very good.
We've all gotten copies of your application and a copy of your resume. So are you prepared? Ready? Okay, my first question. What do you feel you can bring to the Planning Commission? Interests, talents, life experiences, training, et cetera.
Yeah, sure. So, again, my name is Joe Gould. Thanks for inviting me in here this evening. A little bit about my background. Live on Larpenter Avenue. I'm a political scientist, small business owner. I provide public policy research and consulting. I'm a former city council member myself from way up north. I'm a transplant. We first moved to St. Paul in 2013, and we've been in Maplewood ever since. Lived in St. Paul for 2 years. I was on the district council, on the West Side Neighborhood District Council there. And I don't know if you guys watched the state hockey tournament over the last, since last Wednesday or not, but I hail from the Greenway School District, runner-ups this year, so that was exciting to cheer on my alma mater, and a lot of pride in the community there, but I'm here to stay. So I do bring with me some city council experience from my hometown up north of La Prairie, where I was on the zoning committee there. And I was also a member of the recent Rice-Larpenteur Advisory Committee. That was a joint venture between the cities of Maplewood, Roseville, and St. Paul. And I've been looking for a new volunteer opportunity since then, and I see this as kind of a nice segue transition to bring some of my skills and background with public policy and zoning issues, redevelopment and planning. I've worked with our local legislators here. I used to be former House staff at the House of Representatives, working with Leon Lilly and Peter Fisher and Senator Uyghur. I have a master's in public administration, and that's a little bit about me, and be happy to answer the rest of the questions here.
Okay. I'm going to interject one, after I just told our council about all being uniform, but a question about your application, because you checked off, you were interested in 5 different possible commission vacancies. Is there a priority that you have in terms of those 5, just so that we know?
Yeah, the Planning Commission would be my top choice. I think I also applied for economic development and housing-related commissions, and also Parks and Rec. I was told that it ranked my top 3, because there was limited openings, including the Planning Commission. So, I'm actually more than willing, happy to serve where you folks think is best, but I was asked to rank my top choice. So.
Thank you. Councilmember,
Yeah.
City Manager Coleman.
I would just add that Lois, in preparation for this evening, did ask these 3 individuals to name their number 1 choice, and this is the number 1 choice for all 3 of you, all 3 of them this evening.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councilmember Smith, number 2.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the extent of your knowledge of basic land use planning principles? For example, the purpose and intent of a comprehensive land use plan, or B, the purpose and intent of zoning land?
Sure. Well, I'm generally familiar with, land use and zoning issues, being a former council member on the zoning committee of my hometown city council. I'm familiar with conditional use permits, granting variances once in a while, as an exception to the rule for a small business that's maybe getting started, looking for somewhere to set up in the city. I guess I'm pretty confident with the different tools in the toolboxes and terminology and land use ordinances.
Thank you. Councilmember Knutson.
What's your understanding of the role of the Planning Commission as it relates to the City Council?
Yeah, so what I understand the Planning Commission's all about is, its purpose is to basically review zoning ordinances and land use ordinances, make recommendations to the City Council. And, I was a participant in the 2040 comprehensive plan. I know that was a big part of the Planning Commission's responsibilities over the last year or so. And I went to the different town halls that were set up and provided some input myself, and was happy to provide that input, and I think that kind of works its way up to the City Council, so I'd be happy to help you guys. And I'm a big proponent of sound public policy, and like I said earlier, I'm looking for some extra volunteer opportunities, something to keep me a little busy with maybe some extra homework at night, and I think that translates into helping you guys on zoning ordinances and approving variances if an issue arises.
Thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you. I love this question. How would you react if you felt strongly about what the Planning Commission should be recommending to the council if you were in the minority or perhaps the only one opposed to the views of the rest of the body?
Yeah, sure. So, my philosophy is, well, I'm kind of more of a listener than a talker to begin with. So my learning style is to kind of observe and be a sponge for a little while before I'm going to come in and start demanding changes. I like to learn from people that have institutional knowledge and that being said, do my own research and come up with my own policy proposal too. But, I'm no stranger to sharing my opinion on public policy matters, and sometimes I'm in the majority, sometimes I'm not. And as long as I make it clear what I stand for, I'm happy to be supportive of the overall goals, whatever they may be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Neblett.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. In your opinion, what are the greatest opportunities for Maplewood in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so that's, I guess, another reason why I threw my name in the hat for the Planning Commission was because I've been following some of the projects over the years, the Mercedes-Benz and Trails Edge projects. I guess I wouldn't really have any recommendations on how to have done those differently. Maybe touching on the last question a little bit, I'm more of a fan of the process. And, I think with the Maplewood Mall and the North End Vision Study, I think that's a great opportunity to do some volunteer work related to the Planning Commission, and that's definitely some agenda items that I think will be with the Planning Commission over the next few years here. And it's true, it's a vital part of the city, vital part of the region, and so I'd be happy to lend a hand to the North End Vision Study.
Thank you.
That is the extent of our questions. Thank you very much for your interest. You can either stay around for our council meeting, or you can, certainly there'll be phone calls tomorrow to the person who is selected. The council will be voting after we hear from all of the candidates, and then we'll announce it during our council meeting tonight, and then there'll be a phone call tomorrow.
Very good,
Okay.
okay, sounds good. Well,
Thank you,
thanks
Mr.
again
Gould.
for your time. Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
I believe our next candidate is here. Good. That's good. Good evening. Mr. Lee,
Yes, it is.
welcome to the Maplewood City Council. What's going to happen is that there are 5 questions that we're asking each candidate.
Awesome.
Each council member has a question.
Sure.
And then you get to respond. And I've got the first question.
Sure.
My question is, what do you feel you can bring to the Planning Commission, including your interests, your talents, your life experiences, your training?
Sure. Thank you so very much. And just want to take a quick second to thank the council for having me here tonight. I know you guys have a lot on your agenda and a lot of things to do, but taking the time to find community members to bring voices into the council and to bring voices to the commission is a great thing. So thank you for that. And welcome to our 2 new council members. Very excited to see what you guys are going to bring to the council. My name is Chan Burry. I've been in Maplewood now for 3 years, and it's just been an amazing experience. Something, Mayor, that I can bring to the Planning Commission is I'm a good listener. I'm also a very good communicator. Something that I do very well is bringing people together and bringing people with different perspectives together, really corralling everyone and bringing everyone together to accomplish a common goal. That's something that I'm very good at doing, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Smith.
What is the extent of your knowledge of basic land use planning principles? For example, the purpose and intent of comprehensive plan, or turning on your microphone when you're talking.
Do
you want to start your
I'll
question again?
start it again.
Yeah, that would be good,
For our
thank you.
lucky viewers out there. What is the extent of your knowledge of basic land use planning principles? For example, the purpose and intent of a comprehensive use plan or the purpose and intent of zoning land?
I'm very good at turning on the microphone, but I'm a professional MC, so I do a lot of mass communications. That's something that I do is speaking in front of a large crowd is something that I'm very comfortable at doing. But in terms of land usage and zonings and stuff like that, I haven't particularly have had any direct experiences working with that, but I'm a very fast learner. So that's something that I'm very interested in learning and doing, particularly working and learning about what we can do to really bring up the Maplewood Mall area. That's something that I'm particularly keen on learning and really learning about the zoning, what we can do to that area to bring that area up. So zoning stuff, I don't have any particular knowledge of it, but that's something that I can learn. And the comprehensive plan that you guys have put out, the 2040 plan, is something that I've reviewed and I absolutely love, and that's something that I can learn from. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Knutson.
What's your understanding of the role of the Planning Commission and how it relates to the City Council?
sure. I think the Planning Commission is a very important role. The City Council is also another very important role. The Planning Commission, I see it kind of a hand-in-hand, work very closely with the City Council. The Planning Commission's job is to come on board and to recommend plans, providing comprehensive plans for the City Council, working at the first level, kind of a listening to the community right off the back and then taking what the community wants and then making recommendations to the City Council. So I believe that the Planning Commission role is a very important role in the city function.
Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you. This is my favorite question, that's why I take it.
Sure.
How would you react if you felt strongly about what the Planning Commission should be recommending to the council if you were in the minority or perhaps the only member opposed to the views of the rest?
I think, that's a very good question. Oftentimes we are, decision-making is a very important part of everyday life. Being a father of 3 kids, I'm left in that situation a lot. But, what I've done is I've learned to cope with things. Something that I've learned is I always think about the bigger picture. As a part of a leadership team, what we have to do is we have to think of the bigger picture. What can we do as a team to accomplish a common goal? So if at the end, if I am in the minority or if I'm the one who is opposing the bill, if I really truly believe in my opinion and if I really truly believe in what my decision is, I would stand my ground. But there's times where I would have to compromise and make sure that I know and understand what the bigger purpose is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Niblett.
Thank you, Mayor. In your opinion, what are the greatest opportunities for Maplewood in the next 5 years?
Sure. I absolutely love Maplewood. I've been in Maplewood for 3 years now, and I think there's a lot of opportunities that can happen in Maplewood. The biggest thing that can happen in Maplewood is I would love to see the city of Maplewood work on rebuilding the Maplewood Mall area. I used to work there 10 years ago, and absolutely loved it. In my youth, I grew up and I would hang out at Maplewood Mall all the time. But then to see the trend of retail change, what I want to see if I can work with the Planning Commission to see if we can find ways to rethink the retail world, rethink what we can do to really bring people back into that area, because I really believe that Maplewood Mall and that area there is a big heart of Maplewood. What can we do to do that? Other things is we have a lot of growing families, such as myself. We have a lot of new, young, growing families who are moving into Maplewood. The demographics of Maplewood are changing constantly. And what I want to do is I want to bring those fresh perspective and really those fresh voice to the Planning Commission. I want to bring those and really try to see what we can do to make sure that we can benefit not just my generation, millennials, the crazy millennials, but then benefit everyone who is a part of Maplewood because of the changing demographics of Maplewood.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
What's going to happen is that we'll have our last candidate. There's cake out there, by
Sure.
the way, if you want, if you're planning
love
on
cakes.
staying. I just didn't know. But anyway, the council will be casting our ballots. They'll be counted, and then we'll announce it at our council meeting tonight. And then if you can certainly stay if you'd like. Otherwise, there'll be a phone call to the person who's selected tomorrow by city staff.
Sounds good. Thank you so
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much,
Lee.
Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good day.
We'll get that cake out there yet. You're going to make it? Yeah.
He wins the flow award.
Good evening, Mr. Yang.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Maplewood City Council.
Thank you for having me.
There are 5 questions that we are going to ask you. Each council member has 1 question, and I get the first one, so here you go. What do you feel you can bring to the Planning Commission? Your interests, talents, life experiences, training, etc.
Yeah, I have kind of been in the architecture and engineering industry for the past 5 years or so. So I'm an accountant, so I work on the support side, the admin staff. I'm lucky enough to see all the architects and engineer design things, what they think about, how they put things together. It's always such a great experience when I get to see them come up to city council, to come up in front of planning commissions to talk about what their thinking process is, why they, saw the vision that they did. So it's such a good connection for me to try to connect back with my own community and bring that experience and expertise from my peers, the people I work with every day, just for the full circle of
Thank you.
the planning life there, so.
Thanks. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. What is the extent of your knowledge of basic land use planning principles? What is the I just did this in the last one too.
The
What is the
microphone.
extent of your knowledge of basic land use planning principles? For example, the purpose and intent of a comprehensive land use plan, or B, the purpose and intent of zoning land?
To be honest, my background is not in land use planning. It's not being exposed to more of the policies and things like that. That's part of why I applied to join the Planning Commission. It's to learn. It's to, take my career and kind of gain more skills to help it develop better.
Okay. Councilmember Knutson.
What's your understanding of the role of the Planning Commission as it relates to the city council?
I understand it as a group of people that help the city council understand what is trying to be planned or trying to move forward the master plan, the long-term strategy. It's to be the experts to provide the right kind of knowledge for the right decisions to be made, and based upon what the people of the city want, based upon what the future outlook of the city is going to be. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you. This question's more fun. How would you react if you felt strongly about what the Planning Commission should be recommending to the council, if you were in the minority or maybe the only one opposed to the view of the rest?
I see this role as part of being a collaboration of people. So it's bringing different ideas to share. It's sometimes it's standing your ground and being able to back yourself up and prove your point. Even if I am the lone person that doesn't agree, it's up to me to understand why, and it's either keep fighting and stay at a standstill or negotiate or talk about what the differences are and make it work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Neblett.
Thank you, Mayor. In your opinion, what are the greatest opportunities for Maplewood in the next 5 years?
I think the city itself has so many different industries that are represented. The people come from many backgrounds, and it's represented. I see that there is going to be future growth. I know that industries turn over. There's a major focus on providing more jobs, more in the manufacturing realm and things like that. And it's kind of what the vision is for the city of Maplewood. So it's determining, do we want to bring in more manufacturers, or do we want to focus more on healthcare? Do we want to focus more on housing, things like that? So it's strategizing and making sure that we're representative of all of our ideas and that make up our community.
Thank you very much. What we're going to be doing is ranking the candidates, and we will turn in our ballots to City Manager Coleman. I always call it, I'm sorry. To our city manager, and then she will tally them, and we will announce it during our council meeting. If you don't happen to stay, then you'll get, the successful candidate will get a call from staff tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
And with that, we have concluded our agenda. Council members, do you want to submit your ballots? Rank them, the candidates 1 to 3, with 1 being your top choice.
No, I want to handle it.
Okay, thank you. I'll do the math.
Okay, you
Gotta
can
get
do
my
that.
calculator out.
All right, with that, we are adjourned, and council members, there is going to be cake out there for Ron Cockrell.